will be approved in one motion without a public hearing unless a member of the Planning Commission or the audience requests that the item be removed from the consent calendar and heard separately.
Approving all three.
You have a time period you have?
I'm sorry, for what?
For
what item?
There's where we have obviously as far as
Public comment, yes, I understand, I'm sorry. So public comments are submitted through our email address, and Mr. Martorella is actually looking at it constantly, so we can ask if he's received anything other than the letter that we did receive at 1:08 from the applicant for the item that you just took action on, and you're going to hear it. So we can read that into the record as well if you would like.
Can I have a motion on consent items number 1, 2, and 3?
I'll make a motion to approve, to make a motion for consent item 1, 2, and 3.
A motion by Mr.
Chair, could you hold for 1 second? I do believe we did have a comment on the phone. Could you ask whether anyone on the phone did make a comment?
I asked if anybody, or an email.
I know, but we just heard something on the phone line. Okay, go ahead and go for it. I just wanted to be double.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Midgley,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushdaller, Commissioner Grunsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Maury,
Yep.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes. Okay. Motion items for the 3 consent items passed. Okay, we will move to our action item number 4, use permit number PA 1900127.
Thank you, Chairman Hamilton. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This project is a use permit application to expand an existing religious assembly, increasing the maximum seating capacity from 170 to 700 people, and adding a new assembly hall and social hall connected by a hallway. The project plan proposes to develop the expansion in 2 phases over 4 years. Sorry, I'm not used to it. The parcel is located on the north side of West Grantline Road, halfway between the city of Tracy and Mountain House community. The project site has a general plan designation of general agriculture and a zoning designation of general agriculture with a 40-acre minimum parcel size. The project site is currently developed with a religious assembly for 170 people, and it also has 2 residences. The surrounding uses are agricultural with scattered residences. This is a portion of the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. I say a portion because I'm only showing the developed part of the parcel and the proposed development. I'm just hoping it could be a little bit clearer. This area right here in the center is the area for development. The assembly hall will be here with the social hall right next to it. The existing religious assembly was approved in 1997, and the Sikh temple was established. The temple is open for prayer and food 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. In 2001, to accommodate truck drivers who visited the temple while traveling, a revisions of approved action was approved to allow for short-term parking of tractor trailers. In 2011 and 2016, use permits were approved to expand the religious assembly. However, on both occasions, the permits expired before building permits were issued, and before the conditions of approval could be fulfilled. A traffic study was required in 2011 with the first expansion application. That traffic study was completed in 2011, and for the current application, the Department of Public Works permitted the applicant to use the same study and update the data rather than performing a new study. The update, completed in 2019, concluded that mitigation identified in the 2011 traffic study would be adequate to reduce the impacts of traffic from turning into and leaving the facility. As a result, the applicant will be required to widen Grant Line Road in order to construct turning lanes and an acceleration lane on Grant Line Road as a condition of approval. Excuse me. A letter was received from the Farm Bureau stating objections to the placement of a religious assembly in an agricultural area, specifying land use incompatibility that will result in disruption to neighboring agricultural operations. The Farm Bureau's concerns include traffic, parking, events, and inadequate buffering between parcels. Addressing the land use compatibility concern, the development title permits religious assemblies in the general agricultural zones with an approved use permit. The project will be conditioned to reduce any impacts on the environment and on the surrounding uses to a less than significant level. For example, mitigation measures are required to reduce traffic impacts, and all parking accommodations for the facility are required to be on site. A minimum of 233 permanent parking spaces are required, plus 100 overflow spaces for events. The site plan depicts 404 permanent parking spaces, demonstrating that the parking requirements can be met. The minimum building setback in the AG40 zone is 10 feet from the side property line and 30 feet from the rear property line. However, the new assembly and social halls will have a 175-foot side setback and more than 500 feet setback from the rear. Additionally, the parcel is surrounded by a solid masonry wall, providing an adequate buffer between the facility and the surrounding uses. The department has determined that the religious assembly, existing and as proposed, is compatible with adjacent land uses. And here are the site photos. This photo was taken from the center of the building site, looking south at Grant Line Road. This photo was taken from the same place, looking north. You can see the solid masonry wall in the background. This photo was taken south of the building site, looking south. And this is the location of the main driveway that will be entering the facility. Thank you. This concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions or comments? Staff's recommendation?
It is recommended that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and the findings for the use permit and approve use permit number PA 1900127 with the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open up the public hearing for this. Start with the proponents. Any comment via email?
Hello, this is Tony Singh. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon, Commission. This is Tony Singh, the applicant. So, just want to make sure, can I speak? as a project permanent?
I didn't hear the question.
Ready for him to speak.
Hello?
Right ahead.
Yes. Yeah, this is Tony saying. So the applicant, I'm here on behalf of the applicant. So can I speak about the project for a minute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you, staff, for the coordination and the help. And we have gone through all the conditions of approval, and we will comply with all the conditions for this project. And already just wanted to mention, like, we have the grading permit in hand and also the on-site waste treatment system from the Environmental Health Department, and the grading has already been done for the building pads. So the project is in the process. So we hereby request for granting this use permit so that we can continue developing the site. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else via email or phone who would like to speak on this project? In favor of it?
He said no. Thank you.
Okay, we will need move to the opponents. If we have any
Dom, have you received any opposition comments for this project?
At this time, there are no emails in opposition.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing none,
So, Chair, if I may, I thought we heard a voice. So I'm not sure. Can we wait for a second and see if there's somebody on the line wanting to speak? Is there anybody on the line? Okay. Thank you, Chair.
bring the comment. Not, I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to comment. Seeing none, ask for a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval.
Commissioner Grunski?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. No, thank you.
Sorry. So Commissioner Grunski?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushdaller? Commissioner Maury?
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Is there any other business to come forward? Time? Planning Commissioner's comments. Director's report.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. It's going to be a little lengthy, I think. I'm going to break out the first bullet there into two parts. One is how we're doing at our building in terms of our lobbying and accommodating our customers. And then the second part is really looking at where we're going to be holding commission meetings, both temporary and permanently. So I'll start with the latter first. So the public health building where the auditorium is actually now closed. And to the extent that contract will be moving soon forward as well for demolition of that building. We are searching for our new home. Our staff's been diligently looking for that. Obviously, with everything's going on, as you can see from today's meeting, we're a little bit constrained by actually having a couple of things. One is actual equipment and with audio and video capacities and capability, and then also support from that standpoint in terms of information systems type of support. So what's going on is obviously we're meeting in the afternoon because we have limited ability to have access to certain buildings. The Ag Commissioner's building, for example, today is still an active Emergency Operations Center. So that building is currently an EOC for the county, and will be so until the county determines it's not going to be an EOC. That might be a month. It could be 3 months. We're not sure yet, so we'll continue to listen and ask for that information. So in the meantime, with capabilities, as I was just discussing in terms of not being able to actually have support as well as video and audio equipment, we're looking at temporarily being here for a while. So I anticipate we'll be here for next couple of months until such time that we're able to secure a more permanent facility and actually have both support as well as the video and audio capacities to be able to do streaming as well as streaming the meetings as well as holding the meetings itself. So that might be a situation for a few months there. Again, I think there was some preference in the past to look at the Ag Commissioner's building, and we're still aiming for that, but we won't be able to do so until the Emergency Operations Center or EOC ceases that level of activity. And like I said, we'll continue to brief the commission as to when that might occur. The second thing is the lobby, the joint and shared lobby between the Public Works and Community Development.
Let's go back to.
Yes, Chair.
Poll any of the commissioners and ask if that's going to work. A lot of us are talking about a 1:30 meeting during the middle of the week.
May I answer?
Did anybody poll the commissioners to see if that might end up with one or two commissioners?
Right. So for this meeting, I did send out the email and I did receive confirmation. And I believe what we're going to need to do is take it on a case-by-case basis. I have confirmation on both meetings for May at this point.
Okay. Well, he said a couple months, so I'm just.
We just don't know right now. So we will definitely be reaching out to you before we just unilaterally make that decision. Yes.
Yep. And I didn't mean to imply that. It's more of once EOC doesn't activate anymore, we might be able to get to that point and having the physical meetings there. Did you want to say something, Zoe?
I would just add that staff had some constraints in regards to being able to meet Brown Act and due process requirements. We were limited by we required certain levels of technology that we didn't have access to in the evening. So staff was constrained in part by advice from legal counsel, where I said the governor's order has pulled back on certain aspects of the Brown Act, but in its place has required certain levels of audio and video participation. So I do apologize if we have not had that conversation enough with you. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to do the May meeting and meet the due process and Brown Act provisions that are still in place. And so I will continue to have those conversations, and I will make sure that they have whatever they need in terms of that video and technological aspects that they require so that we're meeting those Brown Act and due process requirements. So that was in part, the governor didn't give us a whole lot of lead time. It was March 12th, and then 17th was the Brown Act 2920, I think was the executive order that then gave us what we were working with in terms of allowances. So I just want to make sure that was part of the conversation.
And Chair, if I can also add, what we can do is obviously, I think Jennifer mentioned we're polling you folks as to whether the 21st meeting works. It sounds like that might work, but maybe what we could do is follow up in terms of if we have to do this for the June meetings, we'll poll you again in terms of just your availability. And I think we actually have the opportunity, if it works, to hold it on a different day as well, but that's something we're going to need to work out for the commission as well as the support that we need for this building. So, okay, thank you, Chair. The other item is we've been closed for approximately 40 days in terms of our offices between Public Works and Community Development in terms of the shared lobby. And so what we've been trying to do is adapt to how our customers would be able to actually come into the building. And instead of coming into the building, we've had bins actually offered outside the building, and we're trying to do everything as electronic as possible, in addition to doing things as much as possible over the phone during this time. Coincidentally enough, we're receiving direction to be looking at reopening our facilities over the course of the next week. or two again. So to some extent, we're going to be reopening, but keeping in mind we have social distance requirements that we will still need to meet in terms of physical limitations and how many people might be in the office, how many people could be in the lobby, things like that we're going to be going through, and where they should actually even stand are things that we're going to be looking at in terms of what customers will face, if you will, in terms of the new way of working, a new normal in our building. So we are adapting to it, and to the extent that we are looking at reopening, we'll be again, looking at what those new normalcy conditions might be. But we are moving forward on that aspect too. So with that one, I'm going to go on to the next bullet. The county board has approved a development title update. It's our comprehensive zoning code update, and in terms of the contract. And so what we'll be doing is John Funderburg, who's the lead on that for the department, will be is continuing to work with the consultants. Diet Batia is a consultant in terms of refining the scope and in terms of initializing it. And I imagine we'll have multiple scoping meetings, multiple meetings with the commission in terms of some major policy implications as to what we're going to be doing over the course of the next 2 years, and bringing to you ordinance revisions that we will be providing analysis and support behind. But it will be a big effort. I'm not sure how many years it's been, probably since the last general plan update, which is probably 1988. So this really reflects the general plan update that was approved 3 years ago. And this is the follow-up work that goes with that general plan update. But it will entail a lot of work on our end, and obviously what's going to happen is we're going to be bringing that to the commission for your policy recommendation at the end of the day to the Board of Supervisors. So that effort has kicked off. And then finally, just more in terms of not just more housekeeping, but there will be some changes that will need to occur as we finalize our location and make any other kind of cleanup changes to the rules of procedure in terms of how the Planning Commission operates. We haven't updated those in probably a decade or more, and that even includes actually where the commission meets and how often you meet, what days you meet, things like that. We want to have a conversation with you in terms of what works for you, if you want to keep the same time. And we'll have some recommendations for the commission as well. As the normal time was 6:30, and so we'll be asking you folks as to whether you want to keep that time and needing to make some logistical changes, as well as some location changes and things like that. But we'll bring you a copy of those rules at the appropriate time and point, and go through it with you and see where some changes should be made. And that concludes my comments. If you have any questions for me.
Questions?
Thank you, Chair, Commission.
You want to go over the items for the 21st?
I can answer that. Would you like me to? Okay. So for the 21st, we have a time extension request. I believe it is for a winery. Durst Winery is requesting a time extension for a previously approved site approval, as well as the Agricultural Technical Advisory Committee. We've been working with them, staff has been working with them to update the agricultural mitigation ordinance. So that's been a long time, a lot of work has gone into that, and a final draft is ready for your review. So that will be before you as well on the 21st. And that's all we currently have scheduled.
Comments? Not, we're adjourned.
I cut that.
Huh?